The plasma cannon's whine filled the air as Zektar pressed himself against the crystalline barrier, his forearms trembling as he reloaded his weapon. The hegemony forces had been pushed back 3 sectors in just 2 rotations, something that should have been impossible against the primitive species they called humans. His compound eyes tracked movement across the scorched battlefield of Kepler 442b. The human settlements were supposed to fall within a solar cycle. The galactic hegemony had conquered 17 species in the last millennium, each one more advanced than these bipedal mammals from the third spiral arm. Yet here they were, 3 months into what should have been a routine subjugation, and the humans were not just holding their ground, they were advancing. Squad Leader Zektar, came the crackling voice through his neural implant. Command requests immediate status report on Sector 7. Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously. Sector 7 is compromised, Command. The humans have established a forward position despite our bombardment. A pause. Explain compromised, Squad Leader. They're using tactics we've never encountered. Our standard suppression protocols are ineffective against their combat doctrine. Through his scope, Zektar watched a group of human soldiers move through the ruins of what had once been New Geneva. Their movements were wrong somehow. Too fluid. Too coordinated. They flowed around obstacles like water, each soldier seeming to anticipate not just enemy movements, but their teammates' actions 3 steps ahead. One human caught his attention, a female with short dark hair and movements that defied standard bipedal limitations. She carried their primitive kinetic weapon, what intelligence called an assault rifle, but the way she wielded it suggested capabilities far beyond what their species assessments indicated. Contact 11 o'clock. One of the humans called out in their crude vocal language. Zektar watched in fascination as the female human didn't just turn toward the indicated direction. She was already moving before the words finished, her weapon tracking to a position where no enemy was visible. 3 seconds later, a hegemony scout emerged from that exact location. The kinetic projectile struck with impossible precision, the scout dropping instantly. But what disturbed Zektar wasn't the accuracy. It was that the human had fired before the target was visible. It was as if she had known exactly where the enemy would appear. How did she? Zektar began. But his words were cut off by movement to his right. Another human squad was advancing along the flank, and their coordination was unlike anything in the hegemony combat manuals. They moved as a single organism, each soldier covering angles that created an overlapping field of protection while maintaining forward momentum. When plasma bolts streaked toward them, they didn't just dodge. They seemed to dance between the energy streams as if they could see the shots coming. One human soldier stumbled, hit by a grazing plasma bolt. Immediately, 2 of his teammates moved to assist, but their movements weren't reactive. They were already in motion before he fell, as if they had anticipated the injury and begun responding to it. Squad Leader, we're reading impossible battlefield awareness from the human forces, his communications officer reported. Our predictive algorithms suggest they're operating with real-time intelligence that exceeds our sensor capabilities. Zektar studied the battlefield through his enhanced optics. The human forces numbered roughly 200 in this sector, facing nearly 800 hegemony troops with superior firepower and technology. By every tactical calculation, they should have been overrun within the first hour. Instead, they were winning. A human soldier below triggered what appeared to be a simple explosive device. The placement should have been ineffective against hegemony armor, but the timing was perfect. The blast occurred exactly as a squadron of hover tanks rounded a corner, catching them at the moment their shields were cycling between configurations. 3 vehicles destroyed with a primitive chemical explosive that shouldn't have penetrated their defenses. Command, requesting immediate tactical analysis, Zektar transmitted. The humans are demonstrating battlefield prescience that suggests advanced psionic capabilities not present in their species profile. Negative, Squad Leader. Intelligence confirms humans possess no psionic abilities. They're using enhanced communication technology. Zektar watched another impossible coordination display as human forces executed a flanking maneuver that anticipated hegemony responses 4 moves ahead. Command, with respect, their technology shouldn't allow this level of battlefield awareness. They're operating as if they share a collective consciousness. Maintain position and observe, squad leader. New intelligence assets are being deployed to analyze human capabilities. But Zektar was already beginning to understand something that would terrify the hegemony command structure. These weren't enhanced capabilities or advanced technology. This was something far more dangerous. This was humans operating at their natural state. The female soldier he'd been tracking suddenly looked directly at his position. Their eyes met across 300 meters of battlefield, and Zektar felt something he'd never experienced in 40 years of military service. Recognition of a superior predator. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't call for support. She simply smiled, a terrifying expression that exposed white teeth, and gestured for him to come down. The gesture was unmistakably a challenge. Around her, the human forces continued their impossible dance of warfare, each soldier moving with the fluid certainty of a species that had evolved something the galaxy had never seen. The ability to transform individual consciousness into collective tactical awareness without losing individual initiative. Zektar's 4 hands gripped his weapon as he realized what he was witnessing. The hegemony had conquered 17 species by understanding their capabilities and exploiting their limitations. But humans didn't have limitations, they had adaptations. Every challenge made them stronger. Every tactical problem taught them new solutions. Every battle transformed them into something more effective than they had been before the fighting began. And they were enjoying it. The revelation struck Zektar like a physical blow. The humans weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting because they were designed to fight. War wasn't something they endured, it was something they excelled at. The stress that broke other species made humans sharper, faster, more creative, more dangerous. A plasma blast struck the barrier near his head, and Zektar realized he'd been so focused on the female soldier that he'd lost situational awareness. When he looked back, she was gone. The position where she'd been standing was empty, with only scorch marks indicating the firefight that had raged there moments before. Squad leader, his communications officer called urgently. Motion sensors indicate multiple contacts approaching your position. Zektar activated his thermal imaging and saw nothing. His motion detectors showed clear readings. Even his chemical sensors detected no foreign pheromones. But every instinct developed over 40 years of combat screamed that he was being hunted. "Where are they?" he whispered into his communicator. Sensors show 3 contacts within 50 meters, but visual confirmation is negative. Zektar understood. The humans had learned to move in ways that defeated hegemony technology. They'd studied their enemies' capabilities and developed countermeasures in real time, adapting faster than the hegemony could adjust their tactics. A soft sound behind him made Zektar spin around. The female human stood 10 meters away, her weapon lowered but ready. Up close, he could see details that the species profile had missed. Her muscles weren't just developed, they were precisely calibrated. Her breathing was controlled despite the combat stress. Her eyes tracked multiple threat vectors simultaneously. She was beautiful in the way a perfectly designed weapon was beautiful. "Hello," she said in accented hegemony standard. "My name is Captain Sarah Chun. I think we need to talk." The fact that she spoke his language shouldn't have surprised him. The humans had learned hegemony standard in 3 weeks, faster than any conquered species. But hearing it from her lips, with perfect pronunciation and inflection, drove home the reality that these creatures absorbed new information at rates that defied comprehension. "You're surrendering?" Zektar asked, knowing the answer but hoping he was wrong. Sarah Chin's smile grew wider. "No, I'm offering you the chance to surrender." Around the battlefield, the sounds of combat were diminishing, not because the fighting was ending, but because the hegemony forces were losing so decisively that their return fire was becoming sporadic. "My forces outnumber yours 4-1, Zektar said. "Your forces are trained to fight other hegemony species," Chen replied. "We're trained to fight anything that moves. There's a difference." She was right. The hegemony military doctrine was based on technological superiority and overwhelming force applied against species that fought according to predictable patterns. Humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever produced. "What do you want?" Zektar asked. "I want you to go back to your command and tell them what you've seen here today. Tell them that humans don't just adapt to warfare. We ascend through it. Every battle makes us better. Every challenge makes us stronger. Every enemy teaches us new ways to win. She gestured toward the battlefield where human soldiers were systematically dismantling hegemony positions with an efficiency that bordered on artistic. Tell them that your species conquered 17 worlds by being superior to your enemies. But you're not superior to us. We're not just another species you can catalog and defeat with standard protocols. We're something new. Zektar looked around the battlefield and saw the truth she was offering him. Human soldiers moved between hegemony positions like they owned the ground they walked on. They weren't just winning. They were demonstrating mastery over a form of combat that hegemony forces couldn't comprehend. What happens if I deliver your message? He asked. Then, your command might be smart enough to withdraw before they lose more than just this planet, Chen said. Because what you've seen today, this is just Tuesday for us. Tuesday, a human time measurement. She was telling him that this level of tactical superiority was routine. And if they don't withdraw? Sarah Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Something that reminded Zektar of gravitational force, invisible, but capable of crushing anything in its path. Then, you'll discover why every species in our history that tried to exterminate us is now extinct, while we're reaching for the stars. The words carried the weight of absolute certainty. This wasn't a threat or a boast. It was a statement of observable fact delivered by someone who understood exactly what her species was capable of accomplishing. Zektar looked around the battlefield one final time. Hegemony forces were retreating on all fronts, their technological advantage neutralized by an enemy that had turned warfare itself into an art form. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated that they existed on a level of tactical evolution that the galaxy had never encountered. I'll deliver your message, he said. Good, Chen replied. Tell them that humanity has arrived in the galaxy. Tell them that we didn't come here to be conquered or cataloged or studied. We came here to take our place among the stars. She turned to leave, then paused. And tell them that this planet isn't just our new home. It's our demonstration to the galaxy of what happens when you try to take something that belongs to us. As Sarah Chun disappeared into the smoke and chaos of the battlefield, Zektar understood that he had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just the defeat of a superior force, but the emergence of a species that transformed warfare from a tool of conquest into a means of evolution. The humans hadn't just won this battle. They had ascended through it, becoming something more dangerous than they had been when the fighting began. And the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Hegemony War Council convened within 6 rotations of Zektar's report from Kepler 442b. High Admiral Velnash's crystalline form shifted colors rapidly, a sure sign of extreme agitation, as the tactical displays showed the impossible reality of the human resistance. Squad Leader Zektar, Velnash's synthesized voice filled the command chamber. Your report suggests that 200 primitive mammals defeated 800 seasoned hegemony warriors using inferior technology. Please clarify. Zektar stood at attention, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. High Admiral, with respect, the humans are not primitive mammals. That assessment is fundamentally flawed. The council chamber fell silent. In 1,200 years of hegemony expansion, no species had ever been reclassified upward after initial contact. Species were cataloged, their capabilities assessed, and appropriate conquest protocols were applied. The system had never failed. Explain, Velnash commanded. The humans fight like no species in our databases. They don't just adapt to battlefield conditions, they evolve during combat. Each engagement makes them more effective than the previous one. Their tactical awareness operates at a level that suggests a form of consciousness we don't understand. Fleet Commander Rixtau, whose insectoid features twitched with skepticism, activated a holographic display. Intelligence reports indicate humans have only been spacefaring for roughly 100 of their years. Their weapons technology is chemical-based projectile systems with primitive guidance systems. Their armor is metal alloy plates. How do you explain tactical superiority over energy weapons and shield technology? Zektar had anticipated this question. During his retreat from Kepler 442b, he'd had time to analyze what he'd witnessed. Fleet Commander, we've been measuring human capabilities using our standards. That's the error. Humans don't fight with technology, they fight with their minds. Their weapons aren't primitive, they're optimized. Their tactics aren't standard, they're evolutionary. Explain evolutionary, Velnash demanded. Every human soldier on that battlefield was learning from every other human's experience in real time. When one soldier discovered a weakness in our shield rotation, every human knew about it within seconds. When one squad developed a counter to our suppression tactics, every squad implemented the counter simultaneously. The chamber erupted in clicking, chittering, and harmonic vibrations as council members exchanged views in their native languages. The concept Zektar described violated everything the hegemony understood about individual consciousness and battlefield communication. "You're suggesting a hive mind," said science coordinator Thelvas, whose blue-skinned form leaned forward intently. "But our scans show no psionic capabilities in the human brain structure." "Not a hive mind," Zektar replied. "Something more dangerous. Individual minds that choose to network their consciousness for tactical advantage while maintaining personal autonomy. They become a collective intelligence without losing individual creativity." Velnash's form shifted to deep red, the color of serious concern. "Show us the battlefield recordings." The holographic displays activated, showing aerial footage of the engagement. The council watched as human forces moved across the battlefield with coordination that seemed choreographed, yet with adaptations that occurred too quickly to be pre-planned. Here, Zektar pointed to a sequence where human soldiers executed a flanking maneuver. "Watch how they respond to our plasma cannon emplacement." On screen, a human squad encountered concentrated plasma fire from a fixed position. Instead of taking cover or calling for support, they immediately scattered into a pattern that created 3 separate lines of attack while maintaining mutual support. The movement was too coordinated to be coincidental, too adaptive to be rehearsed. "Notice the timing," Zektar continued. "Each soldier begins moving before the others complete their actions. They're not reacting to what they see. They're responding to intentions they somehow share." Fleet Commander Riksdal's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Communication technology. They must have instantaneous neural interfaces. We monitored all electromagnetic frequencies during the engagement," reported intelligence analyst Kexmore. "No tactical communications detected beyond standard voice protocols using their primitive radio systems." The council members exchanged glances. The implications were staggering. "Continue the analysis," Velnash ordered. Zektar advanced the recording to the moment when Captain Sarah Chun had challenged him. "This is where I began to understand what we're facing." The hologram showed Chun looking directly at Zektar's concealed position, then gesturing for him to come down. But the council could see what Zektar hadn't noticed during the battle. Every human within a 50-meter radius had turned toward his position at exactly the same moment. "They all knew where I was," Zektar said quietly. "Not because they could see me, but because one of them sensed my presence and somehow shared that awareness with every nearby soldier instantaneously." Science coordinator Thelvas manipulated the holographic controls, zooming in on individual human faces during the gesture. Each soldier showed the same expression of focused attention, but their eyes tracked different threat vectors while maintaining awareness of Zektar's position. "This is unprecedented," Thelvas murmured. "They're sharing sensory data across multiple individuals while processing separate tactical information streams." "Show them the retreat phase," Velnash commanded. The recording shifted to aerial footage of hegemony forces withdrawing from human positions. What should have been an orderly tactical withdrawal had become a chaotic rout as human forces anticipated every hegemony movement and positioned themselves to maximize damage during the retreat. "They didn't just defeat us," Zektar explained. "They studied us during the battle and developed specific counters to our standard withdrawal protocols. By the time we began retreating, they knew our doctrine better than some of our own soldiers." Fleet Commander Riksdal's compound eyes focused on the display with predatory intensity. "How quickly did they adapt?" "Immediate. I observed human soldiers encountering hegemony weapons they'd never seen before and developing effective counters within minutes. One human female neutralized a plasma cannon emplacement by understanding the weapon's charge cycle after observing only 3 shots." The chamber fell silent as council members absorbed the implications. "What are your tactical recommendations?" Velnash asked. Zektar had prepared for this question, but the answer still tasted like defeat. High Admiral, I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space and reclassification of humanity as a Category Alpha threat. Category Alpha was reserved for species capable of challenging the hegemony itself. In 12 centuries of expansion, only 2 species had ever received that classification, and both had required coalition forces from multiple hegemony worlds to defeat. Based on one engagement, Rixtal demanded. Based on the rate of adaptation I observed, Zektar replied. High Admiral, they're not just learning our tactics, they're learning how we think. Every battle we fight with them makes them more dangerous while revealing our capabilities to an enemy that can incorporate new information faster than we can develop countermeasures. Intelligence analyst Kexmore activated additional displays showing strategic assessments of human colonies. Squad Leader Zektar, are you suggesting that humanity poses a threat to the entire hegemony? The question hung in the chamber like a gravitational distortion, warping all other considerations around its implications. Analyst Kexmore, Zektar said slowly, I'm suggesting that humanity poses a threat to the concept of conquest itself. The statement was so outrageous that several council members began protest vocalizations simultaneously. But Velnash raised a crystalline appendage for silence. Explain. The hegemony conquers species by understanding their capabilities and overwhelming them with superior force applied through proven tactics. But humans don't have fixed capabilities, they have potential. Every challenge activates new levels of performance. Every threat teaches them new ways to respond. Zektar gestured toward the tactical displays still showing human battlefield movements. We attack them expecting to face primitive mammals with basic technology. Instead, we encountered a species that transforms warfare into a learning experience. They don't just fight, they evolve through fighting. Science Coordinator Thelvas leaned forward intently. Are you suggesting that combat triggers some form of enhanced cognitive development in humans? I'm suggesting that humans exist in a state of continuous development that accelerates under pressure. What we witnessed wasn't just tactical adaptation. It was real-time evolution of combat capabilities. The holographic displays showed detailed analysis of human movements throughout the battle. Computer models highlighted the mathematical precision of their coordination, the exponential improvement in their tactical responses, and the creative adaptation of standard maneuvers into configurations that had never appeared in hegemony tactical databases. Look at this sequence. Zektar pointed to footage of humans coordinating a multi-vector assault on a hegemony strongpoint. They're using our own defensive protocols against us, but modified in ways that turn our strengths into vulnerabilities. Fleet Commander Rixtal studied the display with growing unease. How is that possible? They shouldn't understand our defensive systems. They learned them by attacking them, Zektar replied. Every shot we fired taught them something about our energy systems. Every movement we made revealed something about our tactical doctrine. By the end of the engagement, they understood our capabilities better than we understand theirs. The implications were staggering. Humanity had turned warfare into a form of intelligence gathering that made them more dangerous with every encounter. What did the human female tell you during your interaction? Velnash asked. Zektar recalled Captain Chen's words with perfect clarity. She said that humans don't just adapt to warfare, they ascend through it. She said that every battle makes them better, every challenge makes them stronger, and every enemy teaches them new ways to win. Psychological warfare, Rixtal suggested hopefully. No, Zektar replied firmly. Statement of fact. I observed it happening in real time. The humans who fought us at the end of the battle were more capable than the humans who fought us at the beginning. They had literally become more effective warriors through the process of fighting us. The council chamber erupted in agitated discussion as members grappled with concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions about species development and military capability. Order, Velnash commanded. Analysis Coordinator Kexmore. What do our projections show for extended conflict with humanity? Kexmore's tentacled form shifted nervously as data streams flowed across the displays. High Admiral, if Squad Leader Zektar's observations are accurate, continued engagement with human forces would result in exponentially increasing casualties as they adapt to our tactics while we exhaust our advantages. The mathematical models painted a disturbing picture. Hegemony forces would win initial engagements through superior technology and numbers, but each victory would cost more resources while teaching humans how to counter hegemony advantages. Eventually, the learning curve would intersect with tactical effectiveness, and humans would begin winning through pure adaptive superiority. How long before they could challenge us directly? Velnash asked. Unknown, High Admiral. We have no precedent for species that improve their capabilities through combat experience at the rate squad leader Zektar observed. The truth settled over the chamber like a gravity field. Humanity represented something the hegemony had never encountered, a species that became stronger through opposition, more dangerous through conflict, and more capable through challenge. Recommendations? Velnash asked quietly. Fleet Commander Rixtal spoke first. Immediate, overwhelming force. Destroy their colonies before they can adapt to our full capabilities. That approach risks revealing our complete tactical doctrine to an enemy that learns from every engagement, Thelvas countered. If we fail to achieve complete victory, we'll have given them everything they need to defeat us. Then, what do you propose? Rixtal demanded. Science Coordinator Thelvas looked around the chamber with an expression that somehow conveyed both fear and fascination. I propose we consider the possibility that we've encountered a species that represents the next stage of galactic evolution. A species that doesn't just adapt to their environment, they transform it through their presence. The silence that followed was broken only by the harmonic resonance of the chamber's systems. And if that's true? Velnash asked. Then, the age of conquest is ending, Thelvas replied quietly. And the age of humanity is beginning. 7-3 standard cycles after the Hegemony War Council's emergency session, Admiral Velnash stood aboard the flagship Dominance, watching through reinforced viewports as the human colony world of New Terra grew larger on the approach vector. The decision had been made to test humanity's capabilities with a full-scale assault using the hegemony's most advanced technologies and elite forces. If humans could truly adapt and ascend through warfare as Zektar claimed, then this engagement would either confirm those claims or disprove them definitively. Velnash had committed 1,200 warships, 50,000 ground forces, and the most sophisticated weapons in the hegemony arsenal to the operation. Fleet status report, Velnash commanded. All vessels in position, High Admiral, reported Fleet Tactical Coordinator Mexrick. Long-range sensors detect human defensive installations on the planetary surface, and approximately 200 of their primitive spacecraft in orbital positions. 200 ships against 1,200. The odds should have been overwhelming, but Velnash felt none of the confidence that usually preceded hegemony victories. Something about the human defensive formations suggested they were not just prepared for this assault, they were expecting it. Analysis of human ship movements? Velnash requested. Unusual, High Admiral. They're not maintaining standard defensive positions. Their formations appear random, but mathematical analysis suggests underlying patterns we cannot identify. Velnash studied the tactical displays showing human ship positions scattered throughout the system in configurations that violated every principle of space combat doctrine. Ships were positioned in seemingly vulnerable formations, isolated from mutual support, with no clear command structure apparent. It was either the worst defensive strategy in galactic history, or something completely outside hegemony understanding. Long-range communications detected, reported intelligence operator Yixtao. The humans are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Content: unclear, High Admiral. They appear to be sharing vast amounts of data between ships, but the transmission protocols don't match any known communication standards. The information density exceeds anything we've observed from their technology level. Velnash's form shifted to deep orange, the color of focused attention. Are they coordinating their defense? Unknown, but the data streams are increasing in volume and complexity as we approach. Whatever they're sharing, it's getting more intensive. Through the viewport, New Terra continued to grow larger. The planet showed signs of extensive human colonization, cities, industrial complexes, agricultural zones, and defensive installations that seemed designed more for protection against ground assault than orbital bombardment. High Admiral, Mexrick announced. We're receiving a communication from the human forces. Display. The main screen activated to show a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. He had gray hair, weathered features, and eyes that seemed to take in far more than they should be able to see from a simple video transmission. Hegemony vessels. The human said in perfect hegemony standard. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Fleet. We know why you're here, and we want to offer you a chance to reconsider your approach. Velnash activated the response transmitter. This is High Admiral Velnash of the Hegemony First Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to incorporation into the hegemony, or face the consequences of resistance. Admiral Webb's expression didn't change, but something in his posture suggested amusement. Hi, Admiral. I'm going to share some information with you that might change your perspective. 3 cycles ago, your squad leader Zektar engaged our forces on Kepler 442b. We appreciated his professionalism and his willingness to deliver our message to your command. The fact that this human admiral knew about Zektar's classified report sent alarm signals through Velnash's consciousness. That engagement taught us a great deal about hegemony tactics, technology, and strategic thinking, Webb continued. We've spent the time since then preparing for this moment. You've had 3 cycles to prepare. We've had 12 centuries of conquest experience. Webb smiled, the same terrifying expression Zektar had described from Captain Chun. Hi, Admiral. You're thinking about this wrong. You've had 12 centuries of experience conquering species that think like you do. We don't think like you do. Elaborate. You see this as a battle between your 1,200 ships and our 200. We see this as a learning opportunity involving 1,400 spacecraft, advanced weapons systems, and tactical doctrines that we've never had the chance to study before. The implications of Webb's words struck Velnash like a gravitational wave. The humans weren't viewing this as a battle they might lose. They were treating it as a chance to analyze and understand hegemony capabilities at full scale. You cannot hope to defeat a force 6 times your size, Velnash stated. High Admiral, defeat, and victory are concepts from your perspective. From our perspective, every engagement teaches us something we didn't know before. Win or lose, we become more capable afterward. The question is, will you? Webb gestured towards something off-screen, and new data began appearing on the tactical displays. Human ships throughout the system were moving into formations that still made no tactical sense, but demonstrated coordination that shouldn't have been possible across interplanetary distances. What are you showing us? Velnash asked. We're showing you what we learned from analyzing squad leader Zektar's equipment after our encounter on Kepler 442b. A chill of realization struck Velnash. You captured hegemony technology. We didn't capture it. Zektar left it behind during his tactical withdrawal. We studied it, understood it, and improved upon it. The tactical displays suddenly showed detailed schematics of hegemony ship designs, weapon systems, and shield configurations. Information that should have taken decades of intelligence gathering appeared on human screens with complete accuracy. How did you? Reverse engineering, Webb said simply. We took apart everything Zektar's forces left behind and figured out how it works. Then, we built better versions. New sensor readings began appearing on Velnash's displays. Human ships were powering up weapons systems that registered energy signatures far beyond what their technology should have been capable of producing. Impossible, Mexric whispered. Those power readings exceed our own weapons systems. High Admiral, Webb continued. We want to give you the same choice we gave squad leader Zektar. Withdraw now, and report back to your command that humanity is not interested in being conquered. Stay, and discover why every species in our history that tried to exterminate us is now extinct while we're reaching for the stars. The same words Captain Chun had spoken to Zektar, but delivered with the calm certainty of someone who held all the advantages. You're bluffing, Velnash declared, but uncertainty crept into the statement. High Admiral, humans don't bluff. We calculate, we prepare, and we execute. Would you like a demonstration? Without waiting for an answer, Webb gestured again. A single human ship, one of their smaller vessels, accelerated toward the hegemony fleet at a velocity that should have been impossible for their propulsion technology. Weapons lock detected, Mexric reported urgently. But the targeting system is unlike anything in our databases. The human ship fired a single projectile that struck a hegemony destroyer with surgical precision. The impact should have been absorbed by the ship's shields, but instead, the destroyer's entire power grid went dark. What happened? Velnash demanded. The projectile was designed specifically to exploit the harmonic frequency of our shield generators, reported the tactical analysis officer. It didn't penetrate the shields, it disrupted them from within. On screen, Admiral Webb nodded approvingly. 3 cycles of studying Zektar's equipment taught us how your shields work. That projectile was tuned to the exact frequency needed to cause cascade failure in your defensive systems. Velnash stared at the disabled destroyer. A single shot from a human vessel had neutralized a warship that should have been invulnerable to their weapons technology. That was a warning shot, Webb said calmly. Our ships are now armed with projectiles designed specifically for every class of vessel in your fleet. We know your shield frequencies, your armor compositions, and your structural weak points. How is that possible? Because you've been conquering species for 12 centuries using the same technology and tactics. You're predictable. We're not. More data streams flowed across the displays as human ships throughout the system demonstrated capabilities that defied every assessment of their technological development. Ships moved with precision that suggested propulsion systems generations ahead of what intelligence had reported. Weapons powered up with energy signatures that rivaled hegemony capital ships. "Hi, Admiral," Webb said quietly. "You came here expecting to fight primitive mammals with basic technology. Instead, you're facing a species that spent 3 cycles reverse engineering your equipment and building better versions specifically designed to counter your advantages." Tactical assessment, Velnash ordered quietly. Mexric's form shifted through several color phases before responding. "Hi, Admiral. If these readings are accurate, human forces now possess technological superiority in weapons systems, targeting accuracy, and defensive capabilities. The impossible had occurred. In 3 cycles, humans had not just matched hegemony technology, they had surpassed it by studying captured equipment and developing specific countermeasures. But that's not the most important thing we learned, Webb continued. The most important thing we learned is how your species thinks. Your tactical doctrine, your strategic planning, your decision-making processes, all of it follows patterns that we've now mapped and understood. You're saying you can predict our actions? Hi, Admiral. We predicted this entire engagement. We knew you would come here with overwhelming force after Zektar's report. We knew you would position your fleet in standard assault formations. We knew you would demand our surrender before beginning your attack. Webb smiled again, and this time Velnash understood why Zektar had described it as terrifying. We also know what you're going to do next. Enlighten me. You're going to order a full assault because retreat after this conversation would be interpreted as weakness by your command structure. Your cultural imperatives don't allow for tactical withdrawal in the face of inferior numbers, even when those numbers possess superior technology. Velnash felt the accuracy of Webb's assessment like a physical blow. The human was right. Hegemony doctrine and cultural expectations made retreat impossible under these circumstances. But here's what your doctrine doesn't account for, Webb continued. We've been broadcasting this entire conversation throughout human space. Every human colony, every ship, every settlement is watching this engagement and learning from it in real time. Psychological warfare, Velnash said, but the words lacked conviction. Information sharing, Webb corrected. Right now, millions of humans are analyzing every detail of your fleet composition, your technology, and your tactical responses. Every shot you fire will be studied by human scientists and engineers who will develop better countermeasures. The scope of what Webb was describing began to penetrate Velnash's consciousness. This wasn't just a battle. It was a galaxy-wide educational event for humanity. If you proceed with your attack, you'll be teaching our entire species everything we need to know to defeat the hegemony itself. You cannot defeat 1,200 ships with 200, Velnash insisted. Hi, Admiral. You're still thinking about this in terms of ship counts. We're thinking about this in terms of information density and technological advancement. Every minute you remain in this system, we learn more about your capabilities while you learn nothing new about ours. Webb gestured toward his tactical displays. Would you like to see what we've learned about your fleet composition just from your approach vectors? New information appeared on the screens. Detailed analysis of every ship in Velnash's fleet, including classification, weapons loadout, shield configurations, and even crew complement estimates. How did you? Sensor analysis, emission patterns, and gravitational signatures, Webb explained. We've been studying your approach for the past rotation and building detailed profiles of every vessel. We know which ships are your command vessels, which carry your most experienced crews, and which represent your most advanced technology. The human admiral paused, allowing the implications to settle. High Admiral, we know your fleet better than some of your own officers do. Velnash looked around the command chamber at officers whose expressions reflected the same growing realization. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this battle. They had turned it into a comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation before it even began. What do you want? Velnash asked quietly. We want you to go home, Webb replied simply. We want you to report to your superiors that humanity has no interest in being part of your hegemony. We want to be left alone to build our civilization in peace. And if we refuse? Admiral Webb's expression grew serious, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then, you'll discover that the 3 cycles we spent preparing for this moment weren't just about building better weapons or understanding your technology. They were about preparing to take this conflict directly to the hegemony itself. The words hung in the command chamber like a death sentence. You're threatening the hegemony homeworld. High Admiral, we're stating a simple fact. If you force us to fight, we won't just defend our colonies. We'll take the war to every world that threatens our existence. And we'll win. Webb leaned forward slightly, and his next words carried the casual certainty of someone describing an inevitable natural process. Because that's what humans do. We take challenges that should destroy us and use them to become stronger than anything that challenged us in the first place. The silence aboard the Dominance stretched for nearly a full minute as Admiral Webb's words echoed through the command chamber. Velnash stared at the human admiral's image, weighing options that all seemed to lead toward consequences the hegemony had never faced in 12 centuries of expansion. Fleet Commander Mexrick, Velnash said quietly. Tactical probability assessment for full engagement. Mexrick's chromatic patterns shifted rapidly as he processed the accumulated data. High Admiral, based on observed human technological capabilities and the intelligence advantage they've demonstrated, probability of hegemony victory has decreased to 37%. 37%. Against a force 1/6 their size using supposedly primitive technology. Elaboration. Their weapons systems show capabilities that exceed our defensive parameters. Their tactical intelligence appears comprehensive. Most critically, their learning curve suggests they will become more effective during extended engagement while our capabilities remain static. On the main screen, Admiral Webb waited with the patience of someone who already knew the outcome of the conversation. High Admiral, Webb said, breaking the silence. I'm going to show you something that might help inform your decision. The tactical displays suddenly filled with new information, detailed schematics showing human industrial capabilities, population centers, and resource distribution across their colonial territories. What are you showing us? Velnash asked. Transparency, Webb replied. We're showing you exactly what you'd be fighting if you choose to proceed with this attack. The data revealed a civilization that defied everything the hegemony understood about colonial development. Human settlements weren't just population centers. They were integrated industrial complexes capable of rapid technological development and military production. How many humans are there? Velnash asked. Approximately 12 billion across 47 worlds and 300 orbital installations, Webb answered without hesitation. All of them now aware of this engagement and contributing to our tactical response. 12 billion individuals sharing information and developing solutions in real time. The concept staggered Velnash's comprehension. That's impossible. No species can coordinate information exchange across that many individuals. High Admiral, you're applying your species' limitations to ours. Humans don't just share information. We build upon it collectively while maintaining individual creativity and initiative. Webb gestured, and New displays showed information flow patterns across human space. Data streams flowed between worlds, colonies, and installations in patterns that resembled neural networks more than communication systems. Every engagement you've had with our forces has been analyzed by millions of human scientists, engineers, and tactical specialists. Every shot fired, every maneuver attempted, every technology demonstrated, all of it has been studied and incorporated into our collective understanding. The implications were staggering. Humanity had turned every contact with the hegemony into a galaxy-wide learning experience. But here's what makes us truly dangerous, Webb continued. We don't just learn from our own experiences. We learn from yours. Explain. Right now, thousands of human analysts are studying your fleet composition, your officer command patterns, and your decision-making processes. We're learning how your species thinks, how your command structure operates, and how your technology integrates with your tactics. Webb's smile returned, that expression that somehow conveyed both warmth and predatory focus. High Admiral, whether you attack us or withdraw, we're going to understand the hegemony better than the hegemony understands itself. Velnash felt the truth of that statement like gravity, invisible but inescapable. Humans had transformed first contact into an intelligence operation of unprecedented scope. What do you want from us? Velnash asked. Nothing, Webb replied simply. We want you to leave us alone so we can build our civilization without interference. We have no interest in conquering other worlds or subjugating other species. Your expansion suggests otherwise. Our expansion is exploration and colonization, not conquest. We establish settlements on uninhabited worlds, not subjugated populations on occupied planets. Webb activated new displays showing human colonial development patterns. Unlike hegemony expansion, which focused on strategic control points and resource extraction, human colonies were self-sufficient communities designed for long-term habitation and development. We're not building an empire, High Admiral. We're building homes. Yet you've developed military capabilities that exceed our own. Because you forced us to. 3 cycles ago, we were peaceful colonists building farms and factories. Then, you attacked us. So we learned how to defend ourselves. The casual way Webb delivered that explanation carried more threat than any military boast. Humans had developed superior military technology not from aggressive intent, but as a defensive response to hegemony aggression. If we withdraw, what guarantee do we have that humans won't expand into hegemony space? You have our word, Webb said simply. But, more importantly, you have our demonstrated behavior. In the 3 cycles since your first attack, we've had numerous opportunities to strike at hegemony installations. We haven't. We've focused entirely on defense and preparation. Why should we trust human promises? Because, High Admiral, humans keep their word. When we say something, we mean it. When we make a commitment, we honor it. It's one of the characteristics that makes us effective at everything we do. Webb leaned back in his chair, and his expression grew thoughtful. But there's something more important than promises here. There's evolutionary logic. Elaborate. High Admiral, conflict requires resources, attention, and energy that could be better spent on exploration, discovery, and development. From a purely practical standpoint, war is inefficient unless it's absolutely necessary. Yet you've proven remarkably effective at warfare. Because when war becomes necessary, we approach it with the same intensity and creativity we apply to everything else. But, given a choice, we prefer to build rather than destroy. Webb activated another display showing human technological development across multiple fields, not just weapons, but medicine, engineering, agriculture, and sciences that had no military application. This is what we've accomplished in 3 cycles while also preparing for your attack. Imagine what we could accomplish if we didn't have to spend time and resources on military preparations. The scope of human advancement was staggering. In the time it had taken the hegemony to plan and launch this assault, humans had made technological leaps that should have taken decades. How is such rapid development possible? Because we see challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. Every problem becomes a puzzle to solve. Every limitation becomes a parameter to transcend. It's how we think. Webb gestured toward the tactical displays, still showing human defensive formations. High Admiral, you came here expecting to fight a species that would react predictably to superior force. Instead, you found a species that had already calculated your response and prepared accordingly. That's not military genius. That's just how human minds work. You predicted this entire engagement. We predicted the logical sequence of events following Zektar's report. Hegemony doctrine doesn't allow for tactical withdrawal after initial failure, so overwhelming force was the inevitable next step. We prepared accordingly. The casual way Webb discussed hegemony predictability was more unsettling than any direct threat. What happens now? Velnash asked. That depends on you, High Admiral. You can order your fleet to attack, in which case you'll discover that the past 3 cycles weren't just about building better weapons. They were about understanding exactly how to defeat hegemony forces with minimal human casualties. Webb's tone remained conversational, but steel entered his voice. Or you can withdraw and report to your superiors that humanity is not a species that can be conquered through traditional methods. And if the hegemony chooses to commit greater resources to human subjugation, then you'll discover why our species has never been successfully conquered by anyone, despite thousands of years of internal warfare that made us the most effective warriors in the galaxy. Webb stood, and somehow the simple action conveyed more authority than any military display. High Admiral, humans spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars. We learned warfare from the most dangerous opponents possible, ourselves. Every tactical innovation, every strategic development, every military advancement was tested against enemies who thought exactly like us. You're saying that human military doctrine was developed through internal conflict? I'm saying that human military doctrine was perfected through internal conflict. By the time we achieved space travel, we had already faced every type of warfare possible. We'd encountered every tactical challenge, overcome every strategic limitation, and solved every military problem. Webb smiled again, and this time Velnash understood that the expression wasn't just confidence. It was the quiet satisfaction of someone who knew they held absolute superiority. The hegemony has 12 centuries of experience conquering species that had never fought anyone except the hegemony. Humans have millennia of experience fighting opponents who were just as smart, just as creative, and just as determined as we are. You're suggesting that internal warfare made you superior to external threats? High Admiral, I'm stating a fact that's about to become very relevant to your decision-making process. Webb activated a final display showing human military historical data, thousands of years of conflicts involving billions of participants using every conceivable form of warfare. Every tactic your forces might use against us has already been used by humans against humans. Every strategy you might employ has already been countered by human strategists. Every innovation you might develop has already been anticipated by human military theorists. The scope of human military experience dwarfed anything in hegemony history. But here's the critical difference, Webb continued. We learned all of this through conflicts where both sides were equally intelligent, equally creative, and equally motivated. The hegemony learned through conflicts where you held overwhelming technological and strategic advantages. You're saying we've never been truly tested. High Admiral, you've never faced an opponent that could match your capabilities, predict your movements, and counter your advantages in real time. We have, for thousands of years. Webb walked closer to the screen, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the quiet certainty of inevitable conclusion. The choice is yours, High Admiral. Withdraw now and report that humanity is not a threat to the hegemony as long as we're left alone. Or proceed with your attack and discover why a species that spent millennia perfecting warfare against itself is not intimidated by threats from anyone else. Velnash looked around the command chamber at officers whose expressions reflected the same growing realization. They weren't facing primitive mammals with basic technology. They were facing a species that had weaponized evolution itself, turning every challenge into an opportunity for advancement. What would you do, Admiral Webb, if you were in my position? High Admiral, if I were in your position, I would make the choice that serves my species' long-term survival rather than their short-term pride. Webb's final words carried the weight of civilizational wisdom. I would go home.